for somebody that wants to start to make the changes and start to fix their metabolism, let's get into what the nuances of that look like.
Yeah, well, and the mindset change is really important. I try to work on that right at the beginning, that you don't have to exercise to lose weight or to improve your health. So many people come in with that. In fact, I've had people say, well, I know you have to exercise to lose weight, so I didn't even try because my knee hurts so bad I can't exercise. I'm like, no, wait a sec. So I'll use things like people come to me in wheelchairs and they lose weight. And I was on a podcast with another doctor who does this, and he says, oh yeah, I had people paraplegic come to me. You couldn't move either arms or legs. Anyway, so we all one-upped each other. It is all about the food, and it can be that simple. Meeting people where they are in a clinic means I don't throw all of the special or things that we think everything that needs to be done for full health. And starting with food is so powerful. And then when you use a keto diet, the secret is that the hunger goes away after a day or two, just a day or two. And in fact, in some people, it's just the first morning. The first morning you go without carbs, your body starts burning fat. I've had people tell me that first morning, I'd never felt the lack of hunger. So it can be that quick. And that's because your body starts to burn its own fat. Every human becomes a fat burner if you don't eat anything for 2 days. I mean, I woke up after 20 years of kind of living in this space as a internal medicine trained, glucose-centric, carb-centric human and doctor American. Woke up this year after 20 years and finally said, oh my goodness, every human becomes a fat burner if they don't eat for 2 days. I think it's probably because I've been watching these reality shows where people go out and do these incredibly onerous things, but they don't eat anything. So that basically they are fasting or starving. Now, I don't want you to do that, but it turns out that the human body, we store fat for fuel. And if you don't eat anything for a couple of days, you're going to start burning that fuel you have, which is fat. So everyone becomes a fat burner, and that really. So if you get everything out of the way, you become a fat burner. So just don't eat something that stops the fat burning. Is how I'm trying to teach it now, and that's like. You have to understand there's a carb furnace and a fat furnace. And if you eat a carb, you can't burn fat at the same time. So you have this kind of conflict. So basically people come to, in a half hour of me sort of planting these seeds, people go, oh, then all I need to do, I just don't eat carbs and I'll be a fat burner. Yes. So I try to get people to come to that conclusion on their own around whatever barrier there was, like, but then I need to exercise then. No, you don't. You just don't add anything that stops the fat burning. And then you have to understand that basic nutrition starts with protein. So we're made of protein, we're made of amino acids. So let's start with meat, poultry, fish, and shellfish, and eggs as your base nutrition, and then you can add in some other things. And I've learned now that having this all on a wall chart or on one piece of paper, so you can see the whole plan, is part of what makes this so effective. I didn't make that up. I borrowed this from doctors who'd used it in the 1970 to 2000, and so all of the information is on just one sheet of paper. And I think part of the success of what we do is the simplicity in how it's taught, so that people come back saying, well, and then all you need is that one day of the hunger being gone, and then people start going, oh, maybe he's right, but really it's a matter of focusing on eating protein. If you eat animal sources of protein, the fat will come with the protein, so you don't have to worry about adding fats. And that's a big internet keto distraction. It can stop people. So for that person who came in saying they tried everything, and I'll ask, did you try, internet keto? Or if you tried keto before, who taught you? It's usually, well, my coworker, my, Dr. Google. And I'm like, well, okay, that doesn't count. There are a lot of distractions on the internet. And, did you know your body makes its own ketones without you drinking oils. And oh no. So the method we use is based in real food, keeping the carbs under 20 total, not net, per day. And the results are so fast, so that the weight loss happens about 1 to 2 pounds per week. So that's a nice clip. People see or feel the change fast. And then I'm not shy about saying, you have to be strict. This is a pill you need to take every day. Well, and would you go, if a doctor said you need to take this pill 4 times a day for 2 weeks, would you go in and say, well, doc, can I only take it 3 times a day? Or can I take it for 7 days? It's like pills and diets. Suddenly we have this loss of our minds. The food, good food is medicine. And eating this all day long is really important to get those kinds of results. And so often, I'd say 9 times out of 10, I can correct even people who say, I tried keto, it didn't work. I said, well, it's hard for me to go back and figure out what happened. That's the other thing. I don't spend a whole lot of time trying to troubleshoot about what, that's water under the bridge. Who knows what people were doing, and they might not even tell me or remember everything. So I'll just start from here. Let's go forward. And it's all on just one sheet of paper.
Just to make sure I understand that internet keto piece, I think there's a couple parts to that you've talked about. One being online, people talk about limiting protein, and for you, that's not part of the diet. And right. You also mentioned the piece there of adding oils like MCT oil in, and you do talk about that in your book, but you're saying now that's not essential.
What I teach is what we studied and published papers about, going back to the year 2002 was our first paper, and we published papers on different medical issues like diabetes, fatty liver, PCOS through the years, not just diabetes and obesity. And back then, there were no apps. There was no bulletproof coffee. There was really no awareness of medium chain triglyceride. So we studied and used a keto diet based with real food. The language today, and then basically it's like Atkins induction or South Beach first phase, or end your carb confusion. Phase 1 is what we call it in the book now. But so I started studying and using this in my clinic, and people started coming in, about 2015 or so, saying, well, I really don't like that bulletproof coffee because it gives me stomach upset and it's so expensive. I'm like, what's that? I had no idea. So there was all of this new keto stuff that kind of cropped up that hadn't, really, I don't know of any study that has looked at adding ketones and oils to a program like this to see what happens to weight loss. All I hear is that it makes people have stomach upset, or they get, it's expensive. And even there was one fellow who was drinking so much apple cider vinegar, he didn't eat any food. And I was like, what's that? What's apple cider vinegar? He said, well, you don't know? That's keto. I said, well, I don't think that's the keto I know. So yeah, internet keto has all of these different products and pills and ideas that, I still haven't been in an infrared sauna and a ice bath, combo. So all these other paleo things got glommed into keto, and the seizure treatment where you have to watch macros really carefully. And we never tell people to watch macros. Again, what we came up with, or what we studied, was formulated and created before there were apps to worry about macros. So if it seems difficult for you to do a keto diet, try a version that's not so difficult. I suppose it would be like, the difference between flying an airplane, which I've never flown one, but it looks pretty complicated, to just hopping in a car and you turn it on and you go. So you want to try a transportation that's simple, or a version of keto that's relatively easier.
I remember years ago when I first started learning about the keto diet and talking to people on the show about it, that protein thing that we talked about isn't part of your diet, watching your protein. That was definitely talked about time and time again. And it made it so confusing because it seemed like this continuum where you could be somewhere in the middle with your protein, but you couldn't push it too far or it would kick you out of ketosis. Highlighting your diet here, the simplicity, we're talking about 20 grams of carbs, and that's total, not net. And you don't have to worry about how much protein is part of that mix. Anything else you want to add to that?
Some clinical programs use 30 as the target. And I think there's a balance so that some people can eat a little more carbs and do fine. But if someone wants to have it work the first time, every time, I would use the 20 gram rule, because then total, not net, because then, so you have to burn through all these carbs before your body's going to give up any of its own fat. And so you want to minimize that distraction from fat burning. And then we do allow for zero carb things. Again, meeting people where they are. We have so many people who are sugar and ultra processed food addicts. If I didn't have artificial or non-sugar sweeteners to tantalize people away from sugar, I would not have nearly the amount of success that I do. So I let people have sugar-free Jell-O at first. And then some people go, oh my goodness, it's so processed and all those additives. I'm like, well, it's not as bad as sugar. And I see it as sort of a temporary thing. Although, as a lifestyle, I might have a artificially sweetened sparkling water or a Diet Coke or soda or whatever. I don't really like Coke. It's more, Dr. Pepper or Mountain Dew. And someone says to me, well, I don't like that one. All that matters is you look at the carbs, make sure there's zero. Metabolically, so this could even be a McDonald's burger or Burger King burger, Wendy's burger, I don't care which brand, but they could be part of the solution, actually. I had a young man eat 2 to 3 double cheeseburgers, no bun, no fries, no sugar in the drinks, and he lost 100 pounds or thereabouts. And I've actually tried to track. I can't get my finger on his chart, sadly, but let's say he lost a lot of weight, and I don't ask people to monitor what they do at home. If you want to, you can. But when they come back, I'll have them fill in a little form. What are you eating for breakfast, lunch, dinner? And he basically wrote McDonald's. And I'm like, wait a sec, what? Yeah, I didn't tell him not to eat at McDonald's. I said just don't have the bun and no fries, that sort of thing. And so it basically worked out. He ate once or twice a day, eating the burgers themselves with diet soda. And metabolically that works because you're keeping the glucose super low, keeping the insulin super low, and all these other worries about the oils and the fats and the processed food, at least in the short run, doesn't make much difference. So I don't really stress about the food quality. We ask people to get the highest quality food they can afford and have access to. In Durham, North Carolina, where I live, if I didn't have a way to have people go to all types of grocery stores, all types of fast food and restaurants, this is how people live. And if I said you had to go to the farmer's market or get half a cow with a friend where it was raised, that'd be a deal breaker. I'd have everyone on medicine. And they'd still be eating the McDonald's on medicine, So there are these trade-offs that a lot of consider the source of information. If someone's trying to give you the perfect diet on earth, this is the perfect diet, then they're not going to include those things, whether they need to have that omission or not. It just sounds better, right? It sounds healthier if you don't eat at McDonald's or fast food places, but whether there's a clinical trial proving that or not, well, they don't have to do one. They're the guru influencer who, really, they don't have to show evidence of what they're saying is better than anyone else or, is the best. I would rather have breadth, flexibility in my teaching to accommodate more people, especially in a clinical setting. If someone already has all these medical issues, you want to make it as simple as possible.
So what I hear you saying is when it comes to the weight loss piece, at least, quality of food doesn't matter. It comes back to the carbs. And in this case, if you're in phase 1, the 20 total carbs a day. And I want to highlight something you talked about before to make sure people understand this, because it's such a key concept why you're telling people they have to watch the carbs it comes back to the insulin piece. So when you have sugar or carbs, you're going to spike insulin in your body. And you touched on this, but again, I really want to hammer it home that when insulin gets spiked, it is locking up fat burning in your body. So you're not going to be able to release all that extra weight you're trying to lose or release when you spike insulin.
Yeah, so you drink sugar, blood sugar goes up, insulin goes up, turns off the fat burning. So you can't really burn fat when you're drinking sugar. I mean, there's a great paper about this, but the title of the paper turns off so many people. The title says something like overfeeding of high-carb diets leads to all of these terrible things, fatty liver and all that. Well, overfeeding actually is what normal consumption is today. It's just the paper was done so long ago, it was assumed that 2,500 calories a day was overfeeding, when that's what most Americans are eating today. So you have to always look through the title of something and get to the actual detail of it. But the fat burning as a default, and it's almost like a safe mode on a computer, really. If you had low energy on a computer, it doesn't go into this toxic state that's going to self-destruct, right? I mean, the computer, it goes into a safe mode where I don't really understand exactly, but it uses less energy, I guess. Hey, wait, that's what happens on a keto diet. When you're fat burning, you're actually changing your metabolism to conserve things a little more. And that insulin component is really important. It gets misunderstood. We talk about high insulin level in the blood instead of insulin resistance, because insulin resistance is sort of a construct it doesn't really make sense, because you can take away insulin resistance by lowering the insulin. So it's not like there's someone inside. So, there are a couple of metaphors, like trying to shove people into the Japanese trains and the subway. Apparently they hire people to push people in, and that's like trying to get more sugar in the cell, and those people pushing in. If you get rid of the people pushing the people in, that's really not what's going on. We're talking about high insulin levels because of carbs being consumed, that now you have that together, and it can all be reversed. So, and the other thing that insulin resistance did is, some years ago, it focused on the intracellular processes. So there must be something wrong in that cell that makes it resistant. God forbid it's the food and the insulin out on the outside of the door. I mean, in the blood, because that wasn't. No, it has to be something in that cell. So the scientists focused on, there's a problem getting the fat into the mitochondria. So it's a fat burning problem inside the cell without regard to the insulin outside. So, it's a fat problem. The body's not burning fat because insulin is telling it not to burn fat. So the forest has been lost for these little desire to find the mechanism, and then, of course, the perfect drug that you can use that mechanism to fix things. When this was all worked out 150 years ago in the first diet book that we know in the Western world, the Banting diet in London, England. And so what I teach was actually used for obesity and diabetes treatment before insulin was ever measured. Before glucose was measured in the blood, it was only measured in the urine. And now, again, the saying is that if you can't fix something, you study it in ever greater detail. So we know all these different things inside the cell and all these drugs, but, just stop eating the carbs. It works so well, but you can see this, the focus. In fact, one of I heard kind of real bad black humor, really. It was someone going to the governmental agency saying, look at all the money I can save and all the people getting better at treating diabetes. And the governmental person said, well, how are our drug stocks going to do? So the powers that be want the money to be flowing, and they would rather have, in the short run, the pharmaceutical sales be high and have people suffer, I guess, and even then the doctors in my area very difficult to get them out of a drug treatment model. And food's really, good food is really my secret weapon. And I'll say that sometimes if someone's has no idea what I do, and explain that we can get you off medicine by fixing the food. Don't mention all the other really important things for long-term health, stress management, exercise, social life. But it's a great place to start, and I have a lot of fun. So I enjoy helping people reverse problems, get to live life better, and the kind of clinical practice I had before of a standard internal medicine doctor really was kind of depressing. We didn't really fix much. We gave more medicine. Still today, we give medicine and people just, didn't get better because I didn't focus on the food. Why would you, right? Well, now I know that it's really, really important. In fact, I hope there's some school where the president or the dean or I don't know if it would be a medical school, an osteopathic school, a diet, nutrition, where the dean gets up and says, what you put in your mouth matters, and then leaves, and everything should be taught as a result of this. That, it occurred to me at the gas station recently, I couldn't get bad gas. I tried to find gas with, processed food, and so we treat our cars better and then you walk inside and there's all this junk food and terrible stuff to put in our human bodies that, anyway, what you eat matters. Of course, when you're young, you can get away with murder. And, so as you get older, you may want to pay attention. But as the theme that you brought up, that these things start a lot earlier than any symptom or even blood test may show. So the common sense of just, eating things that look like food is a good idea. I mean, eating food, not fake foods and all these other things, even though they're tantalizingly good. I acknowledge that. But again, that's the insulin. And yet you can't measure that. So we measure the glucose and I wish there would be a way to teach this through the traditional methods, but now it's the, YouTube University. You can learn this actually.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
I've had people, even if they've been on insulin for 20 years, get off the insulin in as little as 8 weeks. The weight loss happens about 1 to 2 pounds per week. My philosophy is to get it to work the first time.